Felina mai kako, welcome to Keep It Aloha, a podcast that keeps it aloha by flipping houses in order to flip your life around. I'm your host Kamaka, and the last time I successfully flipped anything was when that water bottle flip challenge was trending. Those were some good times. Speaking of good times, we are going to have a good time today because we have another awesome guest here in the studio. But before we introduce her, I got to remind you to check out our website at keepitaloha.com to get some KIA merch, and check out our Patreon at patreon.com/kamakadias to get exclusive behind the scenes access to this podcast. We're an independent podcast, and all funds go to helping us run this podcast and bring you the best quality content every week. If supporting this podcast with money is not for you, but you still love listening to us, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Like I said, we're going to have a good time today. We have an amazing guest all the way from Maui. She has knowledge for days, and if you don't know anything about investing or real estate, this is the episode for you. We talk about some awesome stuff. She has an amazing story. And I also realized that I called her niece, her daughter, the whole entire time in this episode. So if you're listening and you hear me say daughter, just remember I'm saying niece. All right. Enjoy the episode, and let's introduce our guest. Support for this podcast comes from Texaco in Hawai'i, which features 58 convenient locations across the state. Fueling up at Texaco is fast and easy when you use the Texaco mobile app to pay at the pump. The Texaco mobile app is a contactless way to pay for fuel, so you can get in and out of the gas station quickly. Fuel your car and fuel yourself. Pick up your favorite local snacks and ice cold drinks at your neighborhood Texaco today. Texaco at Techron, driving performance. Our guest today is an investor and real estate mogul from the island of Maui. She is a licensed civil engineer who worked for 10 years at a private firm, but now is a full-time real estate investor who built her $5 million residential portfolio of single-family, multifamily, and short-term rentals in Hawaii, while also making a profit over $1 million fixing and flipping 21 projects across the U.S. in the last 3 years, while raising over $7 million in funds from private investors. This mother's mission is to help other families achieve independence through real estate investing. You can find her educating people on social media, where she has over 120,000 followers, or at her Hui Mastermind classes, educating local families on how to buy real estate with her business partner and past podcast guest, Fuzzy Jardine. I am so stoked to talk stories and learn from her today. Her name is Zasha Smith. Aloha, Zasha. Welcome to the Keep It Aloha podcast. How are you doing?
Aloha. Blessed to be here.
Thanks for making the trip over. I know we had some traffic this morning, huh?
I know. I remember why I don't live here.
Yes, and I remember why I don't do podcasts at 8 o'clock in the morning. Even reading that, I was like, I don't think my brain is fully awake right now. I don't know if anybody could tell, but I was kind of struggling with that. But I'm super stoked to have you in here. We've met your business partner, Fuzzy. You both are doing amazing things. I think this is going to be really educational for the audience and even myself. Just one thing that we kind of know about, like, oh yeah, real estate invest, but we don't really know how to do it. It's intimidating a lot of times. We just don't really know how to start. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really good episode. But before we get into all of that, let's start at the beginning. Where are you from? Where you grad? And what was it like growing up?
I am from Maui, and I graduated from Maui High School. Whoop, whoop, go Sabres. My favorite teacher in the world, Mr. Gima, recently passed away, so I also want to shout him out as well. And it's been an amazing journey getting here, and I love to just inspire people, because for me, I grew up on Maui, which is really expensive, but I lived in low-income housing. I was raised by a single mom. We didn't grow up with much money. And I think in that era too, a lot of people and parents, and even Hawaii in general, there was a huge kind of drug problem. And so there was constant, domestic violence, drugs. There were a lot of, just family feuds happening. And so while growing up, it was a struggle, but I believe that is where a lot of my strengths come from, as far as where I'm at in life now, because I'm able to push through a lot of challenges that a lot of people can't
Mhm.
really get over.
Yeah, that's why I like people that have hardships in their lives. I don't like that they had to deal with hardships, like, that
Hmm.
sucks, but it makes you such a stronger person. And
Right.
I feel like even in my life, I'm only strong and resilient because of these things that I had to go through.
Right. And then I think when you're growing up too, you don't understand why things are happening the way they are or your life situation. But as you get older, you grow to appreciate it because now you may be going through those same struggles as, say, your
Mm,
parents or grandparents, and you know what they had to sacrifice in order to help to just put food on the table for you and your family. So for me, it was very apparent, especially my mom being a single mom in Hawaii, raising three children. She was always working
mhm,
three, four jobs, or working, 80, 90 hours a week. And so I had a little brother and sister who I had to basically help take care of them. And that was hard for me as well. And
mhm,
when we lived in low income housing, it was when people think about low income housing in Hawaii, they're like, "Oh, but you're still in paradise." And it was
mm,
the exact kind of opposite. It is still filled with a lot of the negative things that come with, people that are struggling, in that sense of there was constantly, drugs being sold there, other really bad things happening there. And so for me, seeing that and having to protect my brother and my sister from all of that, it drove me to never want to be in that situation again. And understanding, I felt like, oh, well, why are we here? Why are we in this situation? And my mom was always working. And so I just shout out my high school teacher in the beginning of this podcast, because he would actually let us stay at Maui High School until my mom finished work, because we had people waiting outside our doorstep. And it was just a really uncomfortable kind of situation when you
mhm.
don't even feel safe going home.
Wow, that's crazy. I remember the I guess the closest thing for me is waiting outside of A plus. And sometimes you'd be the last one getting picked up, and you never wanted to be the last
I
one getting
know.
picked up. But sometimes, just the parents had to work, and sometimes maybe grandpa or grandma had to come get you. So, yeah, as an adult, I appreciate my parents a lot more than when I did growing up, because I had a great childhood.
Mhm.
But that was only because I think my parents went through all the struggle so that we didn't have to. Like, I didn't realize a lot of things till I was older, and I'm the middle child, so I would hear more things from my older brother, which was similar to you in your shoes, where you kind of had to, deal with some of the other things, so the younger siblings didn't have to.
Mhm.
So it wasn't until I got much older when I was like, wow, that's what they had to go through, and it
Yeah.
really makes me appreciate it. So I know you got your daughter over here, so maybe make sure to appreciate mom.
Well, I think now, as long as each generation gets better, that
Mhm,
is the goal and the hope. And so for me, I knew I didn't want to be in that per- position anymore or put my kids through that. So I was determined after I graduated from high school to go to college, because that's all I really knew. And I applied for scholarships, got a full ride to Cal State Long Beach. And I knew I wanted to get off the rock, like a lot of locals say. And
mhm,
I wanted to experience a different life. And so I did go to college, but my second year in college, I actually got pregnant. So I got pregnant at 19, and it was tough. I didn't know what my next steps were gonna be. I didn't have family there. I was living in the dorms, so I knew I had to move off the property and get an apartment, and I debated coming home, but my mom also got pregnant at 19. So
mhm.
that was a realization that I don't wanna live and repeat the cycle. And so from there, I ended up staying, having my daughter. She actually went to daycare on campus. I don't think a lot of people know that some of these colleges actually have
I
daycare on
just
campus.
learned that recently in the last
Mhm.
year, and it's cheaper than regular daycare. Yeah,
Yeah, if you can
yeah,
get in. So I
yeah.
applied when I was pregnant, and because I was a student in financial need, they actually have spots for those people, and of course
Hmm.
the teachers and things like that. But I would ride my beach cruiser, because I was going to Cal State Long Beach in California, ride my beach cruiser go and drop her to daycare, go to class, pick her up. And I never really thought of it as being a challenge. I just knew I had to do it because at the end of the day, I wanted to get my degree to make something of myself. And I think a lot of my family too was very proud of me, but they're also very worried, like, oh my gosh, she's in California and she has a baby. And, you know, just making sure that I was safe. But I knew the way that I grew up was like, can't get any worse than that. So I think that was my driving force in wanting to teach my daughter that there was a different way. And she went back and forth to Maui in California when I needed help. And especially as I progressed in college, there was night classes. And so without, you know, my family's help and being able to maneuver and schedule with her, I probably wouldn't have finished college. So also shout out to them. And I was the first person from my family to graduate with a bachelor's degree from college. And so my grandpa was super proud. And he definitely, after I started in my career, I really wanted to be a counselor. So that was actually my first job in college, was counseling students of when they were getting bad grades or when they weren't doing good in class or they had concerns or weren't meeting a certain GPA. I would bring them in and talk to them and kind of listen to their stories. And it was pretty amazing. But then I also started helping them with their homework. And so my boss noticed, and I was working in the College of Engineering, and she was like, hey, why don't you start, you know, why don't you take some classes in engineering? I'm like, I am not that smart. But what I realized was, as I was taking counseling classes, a lot of the classes, there's gray areas. Like, is the sky blue or pink or white? I'm like, I think it's blue, you know? So it was things that I didn't really, concepts that I couldn't really understand at that time of like the creativity part, but I understood math. 1 + 1 = 2. So as I took these engineering courses, I'm like, hey, this actually makes sense. So that's how I ended up graduating in engineering, because of my previous boss and her pushing me to try something new. And just like my teacher in high school, he pushed me to go to college because he's like, hey, I don't want to see you live this life. And I think that key point is that there's people in your life that you don't even realize are pushing you and can see more potential in yourself than you can sometimes.
Yeah, I think having mentors are so important. It's such an important thing in life. Where I'm at right now, I wouldn't be here without my mentors. So I feel like at a young age, if you know, don't happen to stumble upon one, when you get older as an adult, maybe try to find one, go to events, you know, surround yourself. You know, there's the classic saying, like, you know, surround yourself with like 4 millionaires and you'll be the fifth one, right? So I think that's something that I'm learning a lot in life as I get into like the entrepreneur world.
Yeah. And a lot of, you know, people can look from the outside and give you advice, but I would pay close attention to those who it really hits your heart, or you know that they're looking out for the best for you. Sometimes you don't want to listen, but majority of the time they are looking out for you. So I think even for me, as I moved back home, I became an engineer, I knew it really wasn't my passion. But I knew in order to live in Hawaii, you had to be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, or make, you know, 6 figures a year. And especially because I already had a child. And at that time, I was a single mom. So I think just powering through and finding whatever it is you need to keep you motivated through everything is just, you only lose if you give up. You only fail if you give up. So I know at times, even people that were in my position, or maybe single mom or grew up rough, and they feel like, man, there's no way out or there's no hope. That's why I love, you know, social media, because you can go and be inspired and watch videos of people. And that's why I continue to share my story of where I'm at now. Is I didn't, you know, when people say, oh yeah, you're an engineer and you own all this real estate, I didn't start off with that. I started off with nothing. And even when I got out of college, I still had a lot of debt just from, you know, having a child out there, you know, paying rent, having credit cards and buying a car. And so I think for anybody who is struggling, just know that there's other people who've been in your shoes and made it. And I think, like you said, when you have mentors or people around you that have actually done it, you're like, okay, I can do this.
Hmm. Yeah, also just seeing like what's possible.
Mhm.
Growing up in Hilo, I didn't really see many people in higher paying jobs and positions, so I didn't. Your cap is limited. Like the ceiling isn't that high, and
Mhm.
then once you go out and you realize like, wow, people make $100,000 a year. I thought like $40,000 a year was a lot.
Mhm.
So once you kind of get into those zones, you're like, your mind just expands, your eyes get bigger, and I think it's really exciting. The thing I love about your story is, we hear about the hero and the villain has the same origin story, right? It's just how you react to it. And like same with social media, right? Me and you could be looking at the same thing, and I could get jealous, I could get discouraged, you could get motivated, you can get inspired, and we could be looking at the same thing. And I think that happens a lot in life, right? Even
Mhm.
with your upbringing, somebody could have been like, oh well, this sucks, play the victim card, and like, well, I guess there's no other way, but I just have to live life because these are the cards that was dealt to me.
Mhm.
Or you can be like, I don't want to keep living like this. Let me figure out how to get out of this. Even if it's hard, even if I get pregnant at 19, just like my mother, I can still create a different path. And I think that's inspiring. Uh, and here in Hawaii, I don't want to I don't want to get in trouble again saying we play the victims, but it's easy to be comfortable. It's easy to just be like, well, let me just maybe go to college. If not, I'll get a construction job. I'd become an electrician, just those work for Hiko, whatever it is, go to work for stevedores. It's easy to just kind of go to those paths, maybe get a restaurant job, just the classic things we see here, spend all your money on a lifted Yoda, go
Right.
to Wani's every weekend, and then come back Monday, like, "Ha, I'm so broke. You just spent $200 at Mwani's last night," you know? I
Yeah.
think it's like it's such a common theme that I see, and especially in my generation, amongst friends, amongst just acquaintances, just seeing people on social media. So what you're doing is educating people on how to not do that, basically. And I love what you and Fuzzy say. I know Fuzzy says that. I'm not sure if you say it a lot. Just first thing, don't buy the lifted Yoda, right? That's like the number one rule.
Mhm.
Um, but before we get into that, let us hear how you got into the whole real estate thing, because you had a solid job. Engineers, they get paid really well, but you said you weren't passionate about it. So what made you get into real estate?
I think just seeing all these big developers and people, coming in, building all these shopping centers, like doing hotels and none of them were local. And so I was like, man, we're doing these $1 million projects for all these other people. Why can't we do that? Why can't I be the change? I grew up in low income housing. I know there's a housing crisis. How can I be a solution? And every day I would come home from work, I would be dead tired. I would just lay on the couch. My husband can tell you, I would lay there and I would need so much time to decompress because it's so much brain work that I wasn't really present with my family. And so just recognizing that and seeing like, okay, my mom wasn't really there, for us because she was working so many jobs, but I'm working one job and I come home and I'm still not present because I'm having to decompress so much that that was a wake up call that I needed. And my husband, pointed out like they're getting the best of you and we're getting the rest of you.
Mm,
How is that fair? And so for me, I was like, I took a step back and not just thought about me. I thought about, okay, how is this affecting my family or my husband who is, has his own company, has his own employees, but he's still coming home, picking up the kids, showering them, cooking dinner and doing all these things that I as a partner need to be helping out with as well. So from there, he was like, I'll support us while if you want to quit your job and figure out something else to do, I'll support us until you do, but we need you here. And so I think that was a pivoting moment for me when I realized I got to do something different, and was already familiar with real estate, not flipping homes or rentals or anything on a larger scale. So I just started, Googling like any other person, like how to quit my job and get rich. And so
How to quit
right.
a
So
job and
literally
get
I was Googling it, and then a lot of topics came up, but it said like 90% of millionaires are made through real estate. And so I was like, it was so hard for us to buy our home together. And we bought a fixer upper, not intentionally, but we knew we couldn't afford, at that time, a $4,000 mortgage. So we bought a fixer upper. We just slowly, put money into it. And we were able to refinance out of it, get all our money back. It's called the Burr strategy. So BRRR, or maybe there's more R's. But you buy something, you renovate it. Typically, you'll rent it out, but then you're able to refinance it. And if you buy it low enough, you're able to refinance all your money back out. So we were able to do that, and then also get a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, of $100,000. And so from there, we just started figuring out a lot of financing and loan options that we never even knew before. And I think that was a game changer for me to know, oh, this is possible. And as I researched, I read so many books, I listened to so many podcasts about real estate. I just really started to wrap my head around, okay, this is possible. And how are all these other people doing it? Listening to their stories, like we're sharing now, of they started with nothing. So how do they own all this real estate? And the key was they were leveraging debt. So they weren't scared when we're brought up, we're scared of debt. Like, nope, don't get a credit card, pay everything cash, and you don't want to fall behind or go through foreclosure. And a lot of my family members went through foreclosure in the last recession. So a lot of people are scared of, overspending. But at the same time, there's a difference between good debt and bad debt. And I think once you realize that, you know that you can have bad debt as long as there's income to offset it. And even so, you don't want to be over leveraged. So I think just understanding finances in general helped me to kind of understand how I could get into real estate.
Okay, so could you give us an example of good debt and bad debt?
Like you mentioned before, buying a Toyota Tacoma just for looks, buying all the gold bracelets, like a lot of our family members, and just spending money without knowing what your actual income is and your expenses, without keeping track of expenses, and just spending until your card doesn't work, or spending until you're maxed out on your credit card. So I think that is okay once you get to a level that your income, your passive income, can allow that. But right now, even, a lot of people that I know that have a lot of money, they're always aware of their cash flow. So that means how much money you're bringing in, and then how much your expenses is going out. And a lot of people think they say I'm cheap. I'm very frugal. So I would even the other day, I was going to, my husband was going to throw away like a peanut butter jar, right? But there's like a little bit left on the edges. I'm like, oh, we still can eat that. He's like, just throw it away. Like, I can't. But I think it's more so that I don't like to waste. And I think once you realize the value of every single dollar that you spend, then you'll realize the worth of it. Or if I, spend $50 on a bag or something, and that's not even a lot, but I don't. I shop at Ross and TJ Maxx. But if I were to spend $50 on a bag that will just sit there, or one of these pillows that, you're using it for this podcast, but has no use, but I could put that $50 somewhere else and it could begin to multiply, that is worth it. Like, I'd rather do that with my money than spend it on things that I really am not going to use, or doesn't make sense. Like, what is it called? Honda Civic can run just as well as a Toyota Tacoma. It might not be able to go off-roading or look cool or trick it out. I mean, there's some Filipinos that do, but it's the same concept, right? It'll get you to the same place. And so
Yeah, totally.
That's what I think a lot of people have to realize is, do I need it? Like, there's a difference between need and want.
Yeah, I think differentiating between those is really big. I think making money is one thing, but also saving money is
Mm-hmm.
another. And I don't think a lot of people are good at saving money.
Yeah.
Being frugal is so important. Living at least within your means, but living below your means is gold. I mean, because so when I did. I'm not sure if you're familiar. I did the race to 50K where I paid off $50,000 of
Mm-hmm.
student loans in 1 year, and like a part of it was making the $50,000, but a bigger part of it was living frugally, not going out to eat, not spending money on trips, not um, going to concerts, just stuff like that. So sacrifice is a huge thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think a lot of people are ready for the sacrifice. You know, I see people spending so much money on all these things, going on trips all the time, coming back like, oh, I'm broke. Like, yes, because you just spent $4,000 on a trip.
Hey, Vegas might be worth it though.
Yeah, if you double up. um, so yeah, I think it just depends on, not saying it's a bad thing, because if that's what
Right.
you want to do, if you want to, what's your money gonna do just sitting in the bank, live with
Right.
that mindset. Like, just say you don't want to have a family and you just want to spend all your money and live life to the fullest right now, then that's totally fine. But I think thinking long term is definitely important. And I'm at the point of my life where I'm trying to figure out what to do with money.
Mm-hmm.
I think, finally got over the part where like, okay, I finally make money now. So now I have the money. What do I do with it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the goal, at least for me and hopefully most people here, especially Hawaiians, is how do we afford to live here? How do I buy a home? And I think that's why you're here, because you're gonna tell us how to get rich. And if we don't get rich after listening to this episode, we're all gonna go into your DMs and send you angry messages, right? That was
No.
the deal, right?
No, I think there's so much information, free information out there. It's hard to know what to listen to and what to do. And I think that's where the conflict of a lot of people who are active online or are watching this stuff and want to do something, they actually want to change, but they just don't know what direction. And so we were talking about earlier, that's the importance of having a coach or mentor. And so for me, as I learned about real estate, I got my first deal. I am an action taker. So when I learn something, I'm like, I'm going to do it. So I bought my first fix and flip. It was a condo in Kihei, and it was through a foreclosure. And it was tough to navigate. Like, how would I get the funding? Who am I going to hire to do the construction? But I honestly just kind of figured it out on my own. My husband was a plumber, and so he had some contacts. I'm like, hey, do you know a drywall guy? Do you know this guy? And for me, I'm always at a point where I want to progress and I want to get better. Like, I want to learn something and implement it right away before that desire or that drive to do it goes out the window. So from there, I ended up doing my first flip. I made $103,000 in 45 days.
Which I heard is very rare. I watched your podcast with the guy Ryan
Pineda.
Pineda,
Yeah.
and you mentioned that, and he said like making 100,000 on your first flip is crazy.
It is. But from then, I knew I had an eye for it because I knew how to spot a good deal. A lot of people passed on it because they didn't see what I saw. So I lived in condos before. I walked around the property. I knew it was a desirable property, but if you cut down the landscape, it looked out to a banana patch. It had tandem parking, which I don't know if anybody lived in condos before, but having 2 parking stalls for a 2-bedroom, that is like a score. And then the fire lane was to the left, so you could swing open your door when you bring
That's
groceries. So I was thinking more of the convenience factors and addition that it had. That would be a reason why I would sell for more. But yeah, it is not typical for people to make 100,000, 6 figures on their first flip. But after that, I'm like, okay, I got to do this again. I got to figure it out, because I was only making $60,000 to $70,000 at my engineering job, 365 days. This took me 45 days.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Right?
Just doing that, you were probably like, what have I been doing all my life? Right.
But no, but you won't believe this. I was still scared to quit my job even after I made 6 figures in that short amount of time. And
was that 6 figures gross or net?
Net.
Net. Wow.
Yeah. Net. So I think it was pretty hard to believe, but at the same time, I think I was so stuck to my job that I was like, what if I got lucky? What if this is just the
Mm,
one off? What if this never happens again? I had self-doubt.
mm.
And it was my husband who was like, bro, you only got to do one of these a year and you're
I
making
know.
more than you make at
Exactly.
your job and
Yeah.
you're not all tired out. You're excited about it. Something new. You get to renovate a place and someone else can move into a really nice place. And so from there, I was like, oh, yeah, I could do this. And so I knew I needed a coach or a mentor or somebody because I was just winging it. I mean,
Mm,
that was pretty good. I'm not saying not financial advice to just
mm.
wing anything, but it was in 2019. So it was a really good time to
Oh,
get
yeah.
into the market. A lot of people nowadays, especially in Hawaii, that
Mm,
even have been on this podcast before, came from that time where the economy was really great, things were picking up, and you could make a lot of money. So from there, I got a coach, Ryan Pineda,
mhm.
and joined his program. And he was, I think I seen him on Instagram. And there was a guy that went to one of his events. He had a hat on and there was a Hawaiian flag. So I was like, who is that
Is
guy? I
that
messaged
fuzzy?
him. No.
Oh, sounds like fuzzy.
I know. So it was this other guy, Rads, who we still partner. We partner on deals
Mhm,
till this day too. But I reached out to him and I said, hey, is this guy legit? You know, people from
mhm,
Hawaii, we trust other people from Hawaii, especially if they're doing stuff in the mainland.
mhm,
And so he was like, oh, yeah, sis, he does all these, hundreds of flips a year. He's very successful. He's going to start a coaching program. So from there, I was one of his first students out of 8. Now he has thousands and
yeah,
thousands
it's
of
crazy.
students. And it just took me going there and seeing somebody who is successful doing it
Mhm,
to believe in myself. I'm like, okay, I can do this. And at that time, there wasn't really anybody in Hawaii who was openly like, renovating houses and buying rentals and out there like that, because a lot of times we're taught to be humble and,
mhm,
not really talk about finances, don't talk about money.
mhm,
So it just took seeing him doing it, implementing some systems that he taught us, but at the same time, he taught foundations that works in the mainland.
mhm,
Hawaii is a totally different market that you still have to figure out. Even if you have the knowledge, you have to figure out what works for you or what you're comfortable with and
mhm.
what works here because it's such a high price point.
Yeah, yeah. All the materials are just a bunch of extra costs, right?
Right. And we have
Yeah.
limited housing, so there's
Mhm,
less deals here. So the way they teach you to approach people is very brash, and you can't approach locals like that here. Like if
yeah.
you might see them at Foodland or Costco and they'll be like, oh, this is the girl she's trying to buy my house. So
Yeah.
the approach has to be very, for me anyway, how I always approach people that may be in some sort of distressed situation. We're talking they're going through foreclosure, they're going through divorce, especially during COVID. After that happened, a lot of hotel workers lost their jobs. And so they weren't able to keep up with their finances. So for me, anytime I approach someone or I know that, they got referred to me because of some sort of financial situation, I'm always thinking, okay, how can I help them get out of this? Or who can I connect them
Mhm,
to first that could potentially help them with their finances or maybe mitigate, whatever family drama that they have going on that could potentially get them to lose their house. So
mhm,
I think because I come from a different standpoint of the looking for solutions for them first. That's why a lot of people choose to work with me because they know I'm trying my best. I'm like, hey, look at all these other options. Go to the bank, talk to your family, try to work it out, figure out a way for you guys to try to keep this home. If not, come to me and I can help you find another solution. But at the end of the day, it might not include you keeping your house.
mhm. So what you're saying is there are a lot of options for people with different circumstances in life,
Yes.
and you got started later, right? How old were you when you got started in real estate?
I mean, I was 30, so
Yeah.
not that much
Okay,
later,
not
but
that
yeah.
later, yeah.
But
Because
I mean,
you're still
compared
young.
to,
You're 30, not 38?
I am still in my 30s.
30. I
We'll not discuss the
You
age.
look
No.
young, so it doesn't matter. If you get the Asian blood, then Asian don't
I
raisin.
know.
Yeah.
No, I'm Hawaiian, Filipino, German, Italian. So
Yeah, yeah. So you're
a
gonna, even if
mix.
you're 50 and you said you're 50, the people will be like, "Wow, you're so young."
Yeah. Yeah. So I got started actually when I was 30 as well.
Mhm,
That was, when you hit 30, you're like, oh, okay, this is what my life is going to
Mm-hmm.
be for the next 30 years until I
Mm-hmm.
retire. I think that was something that made me step back as well. And so when I was 33 was actually when I did my first flip.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, it just kind of, I was able to scale because I started talking to people about it. I started sharing on social media.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing that my mentor helped me get comfortable with. It was back, in 2020 when everybody was dancing and pointing at the words. And then, it's easier to post. Now you have to be adding value almost every single post. And it's a lot more difficult. But I think because I shared my story and the struggle, that is why I started building kind of a community online, especially on Instagram. And I was sharing about, being a mom, having kids, balancing your relationship, investing, dealing with millions of dollars. Like a lot of people come to me too, and they're like, you're the only one who is talking about money that's local that I know.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do I do with it? I'm like, I'm not a financial advisor.
Mm-hmm.
You can follow my path. But in the end, after, a couple years and I made a lot of money and started buying rentals, I knew that I had to start giving back in some sort of capacity. I think as you become a leader, even though it's not a choice, you're successful at something. If you're a leader in your community, you have to give back. And so for my motto is always like build wealth while making a positive impact. And so majority of my rentals that I own are rented to people on Section 8. A lot of the homes that we build, we sell to local families, we sell off market. So we don't even get to list it because there's that much of a need. And a lot of people just DM me on Instagram and say, hey, if you ever have a home, or if I share a story, hey, this is coming on. They're like, oh my God, I've been looking for so long. I've been outbid by out-of-state owners and cash buyers. And I've been trying, like we put in 62 offers and can you please consider us?
Wow.
And it's just, it's eye-opening, but it also feeds true to my mission of building affordable housing. That's where I want to get. And more recently, we bought 32 lots on the Big Island where we're going to develop affordable housing, me and my business partner, Fuzzy. And that is what motivates me. That's what keeps me pushing to a lot of people. Even, my mom said, like, when is enough enough? Like, aren't you like done? Can't you just be cruising and,
Just
enjoying
retire already.
life? And I could retire,
Sip
but
some Mai Tai.
right? And that would be nice. But at the same time, I have a bigger purpose. And I think when you know that, you can't stop.
Yeah, I think when you have a heart for community and other people, you can't just sit at home and watch TV and be fulfilled. There's always going to be that thing that little itch that you're like, I gotta go get out there and help others.
Right.
So it's a real thing. So you mentioned scaling, and I think once you get to a certain point, once you reach, I guess, success in however you view it, scaling is a big thing in business, in social media, and all of that. So what what are some tips to scale, and how does one even scale and start? Is it like getting more people to help you? Is it getting an assistant, or just like building a team? How does someone scale?
So there's many different ways that you can go depending on your goals. For me, I scaled through partnerships. So I didn't have to know, how to analyze apartment buildings, how to look for RV park deals, how to even purchase office buildings. But I knew other people that knew how to do that. And so finding a complementary skill or something that you can bring to the table, whether that's finding the deal, funding the deal, managing the construction, always makes for a good partnership, because even though you may have to split the profits or the equity in the deal, if you have somebody that can take a lot of that stress or the weight off of you, I'd be more than happy to partner, because real estate in general it's a really hard business. So having someone to share that with helps you to get to your end goals quicker. Because if I was just to do flipping on my own, I probably could do like a few a year. But with partners, I'm able to, scale to have like 15 to 20 projects. So you're still in the end making more because you're able to offload. Or you could do it on your own and build a team and have an assistant or have other people, finding the deals for you. But for me, I like the value of partnerships. And if you're partnering with someone who has all this experience doing something you don't know how to do, you're still learning. So for me, that's been a huge factor in why I was able to scale. But anybody can really, you just got to figure out your goals. I think that would be the number one tip. Like, figure out what your end goal is. And it doesn't have to be end all be all, but it definitely has to be, okay, what is my goal for this year? If I want to buy one flip, okay, how do I break that down? Every quarter, what do I have to do? Every month, what do I have to do? Every day, every week? What are some actionable items and actionable steps that I need to set for myself and hold myself accountable to do to get to that end goal? Because you'll have more success if you're living life with intention.
Totally. Yeah. So I'm a 30-year-old person and I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. Say I'm not happy at my job. I need to make more money. I'm working 2 to 3 jobs, maybe double shift some days. Would you recommend going into real estate? Or like, is it more situational?
I would say the first thing is find something that resonates with you. So there's a lot of people doing a lot of different stuff in business. Well, number one, follow Invest with Zasha on Instagram. But number two is really find out kind of what you understand. So a lot of people understand the crypto space. A lot of people understand real estate. A lot of people understand starting businesses because maybe they own their own business. So you got to find out something that you wouldn't mind learning more about, get educating yourself, joining mentorships, get coaching, start reading books, right? Like, a lot of people don't even read books nowadays or don't like to, or start listening, right?
Audiobooks,
podcasts. Like, there's so much information, but I would also find someone that you resonate with, that you can relate to, that you can see their outcome and say, okay, I want that same outcome or something similar to that.
Do you think the biggest problem in Hawaii, when it comes to, I guess, surviving here and having a good income, is the lack of financial literacy, or just like our circumstance? Like, we were dealt a really bad hand. It's really expensive here. The jobs don't match the median income and stuff. Like, what is it? A mix of both? Like, why do we struggle so much here?
I think it's a combination of things, because if you're living paycheck to paycheck like my mom was, working, so many different jobs, just exhausted and barely seeing your family just to make ends meet, then yeah, it's going to be hard to see the positive or see the light or to consume anything more than that. But there's a lot of the younger generation who is overly consuming, especially on social media, on Instagram, on TikTok, that's just scrolling, but they're not really intaking the information. So there's so much opportunity now online. A lot more people are working from home or doing, working through Zoom. And I do that majority of the time because my partners are in the mainland, a lot of them. But I think when you have the time, but you're not, like I mentioned before, just intentional with it, or you don't plan out your day. Like, how much of today did you plan out? You knew you had to do a podcast. You knew you had to go to this, lunch event. You have to go to this project.
Watch football at 2:00.
Right?
I got that in my calendar.
You know that it has to happen. But how much more of the day did you plan for self-development, for learning, for educating yourself on other ways to make cash flow, other streams of income that you could be making? If you set that on your calendar or your daily to-dos and you look at it every single day, I think that will help you push forward, because then you're setting aside time. And a lot of people say, oh, but I don't have time.
That's the biggest lie ever told. We all have time.
Right.
As busy as we are, and people tell me, "Oh, you look so busy." I'm like, I have busy days.
Yeah.
That's busy seasons. I was just telling somebody this recently, is that I think, they say like Beyonce only has 24 hours in a day, right? Like, even the busiest person can make time. It's because, like, you say you're busy, but then you go home and you're watching 2 hours of TV at night, If you really wanted to do something, you could be working for another 2 hours, learning for another 2 hours. whatever it is, right? So I think it's just excuses. I think if you really want to do something, you would.
Right.
That's my
Well, and
mindset.
there's like you said, there's a season
Mm-hmm.
for everything. So there's also a season for sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, you know, in the earlier conversation, is people need to learn how to budget. When they budget their money, they budget their time,
Mm-hmm.
then you can allocate it for something else and something bigger and something to help you progress. And
Mm.
a lot of people aren't willing to do that. But
I love that perspective, because we think about budgeting, we think about money, but also budgeting your time. That's really good, because
mhm,
I think figuring out ways to allocate your time efficiently and effectively, right?
right.
I think that's really important.
And it's not
Yeah.
ideal. I don't like,
Yeah.
micromanaging my time. However, I know it's important if I want to progress. So
Yeah.
every single day, I live by my Google Calendar, but every single hour of the day is planned out. And of course, there's time for breaks and things like that. But if you don't look at where your time is going, you're always going to say you don't have time. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I started, waking up earlier, because I was that person working
Mm-hmm.
my job. I was working my 60 to 70-hour job. I was doing my first flip on my lunch breaks. I would go to Lowe's. After work, I would go meet contractors there. On the weekends, I would go to the project as well, or do a lot of the coordination. And I didn't have time, but I made time. And how did I do that? I started waking up earlier. I started, having more people help me with the kids, or, switching off with different
Mm-hmm.
parents. Like, okay, you take them to the soccer game this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll take them next weekend. And so there is that little bit of time that you have to sacrifice, especially with your family. But in the end, it's going to pay off, especially if you know what direction you're going, or you're so
Mm-hmm.
passionate about what you want to do and why you want to do it. And for me, at the end of the day, I want to create more affordable housing. It's so important to me because of where I grew up. And that's the driving factor that you got to find for yourself. Like, what is going to drive you through those hard days, through those challenges, to be like, okay, I need to keep going, because people that were just like me are counting on
Mm-hmm.
me every single day. And if you keep that as your motivation, and you realize the importance of spending your time wisely,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll be successful.
Yeah, totally. Holding on to that goal and holding on to your why
Hmm.
is so important. And I resonate with so much of what you said, because I feel like I've been to the sacrifice part of my life. I think if people were willing to just sacrifice 1 year of their life to just hustle, man, that 1 year could get you so far ahead, where you're not living paycheck to paycheck, where you're not struggling every single day, every single week, because of that 1 year of sacrifice. Not, it doesn't even have to be 1 year, just a month,
Hmm.
just like say no to this, say no to that, and just like focus on yourself, focus on your business. I'm speaking from experience, like it can push you so far ahead, and it has to be a conscious and intentional thing.
Hmm.
My race to 50K was like, I need to make all the sacrifice. Like, I was in the Peace Corps for 3 years volunteering, came back, and I was like, okay, well, I got to get my life started, right? But I was like, what if I have $50,000 of debt? What if I sacrifice 1 more year? Just 1 more year. I don't do this. I don't do that. I don't don't date. Just like focus on myself. Save money. Don't cut my hair. Like all these things. Just like these small things that add up. And doing that, I was able to pay off all my debt.
Hmm.
And now that gave me the freedom to just start businesses and do that. Even though I didn't make a lot of money in between like the years I started it until now, like all the sacrifices paid off to where you get that big $100,000 paycheck, one day. So I think that's kind of the life we live, is like nothing, 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 and then boom, right?
Right. But it all
Yeah.
starts with a goal, right? You
Yeah.
you set a goal for yourself. My goal was, I wanted to quit my job so badly that I was so determined to make this work, sacrifice all the time that I did. But you set a goal, right? You commit to it, because there's a difference between setting a goal and wanting it versus committing to it. Then you take the action to actually get towards it. And that's when you're living with intention. You're intentional with your time, you're intentional with your money, but you're also intentional with what you have to sacrifice and what actions you take, because you could be learning all of these things, and oh yeah, I want to pay off 50K in debt. Like, I'm so motivated, but then the next day you're like, oh, okay, tomorrow, like today,
Yeah.
my friends want to go out to lunch. I'm gonna go, and it's only gonna be like $20, so it'll be fine. So once you start letting those excuses kind of creep in, and you're not monitoring it, or you're not doing self-reflection at the end of the day, okay, what could I have done better? Because everybody makes mistakes, right? The path is not straight. There's going to be some bumps in the road, or you might veer left, or you might do something that, you said you weren't going to do. But the whole key to it is getting back on.
And staying consistent.
Mm-hmm.
I think consistency is like another big thing that people, you have to just,
Yeah.
to me, I feel like consistency isn't something really you learn. You either have it or you don't.
Right.
You have that mindset of like that you're hustling, or you want to, you believe like what you want is bigger than, all the things what you need is bigger than all the things you want at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just feel like your story is so cool, especially in all the people that have kids while doing this. Because I speak from my experience of being a single male, just here in Hawaii, no family, or no kids, and like nothing, no responsibilities other than myself, right? And when you have that freedom, you can do a lot more. But when you're having to provide for somebody else, that's a whole nother ball game. So I just respect the people that do all of this with kids.
Yeah.
Though that's like my only exception when I say like nobody has time. If you have a kid, you have all the excuses in the world. That's why I give it to all the mothers and fathers out there. Just like, if you have a kid, if you're busy, you're tired, go be busy and tired.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't say anything about that.
Right. Well, and that's it. You just have to be mindful, like I said, because I didn't have time, because I did have the kids, but I did have
You
a
made it
husband,
work.
right? I had, in the beginning, I was a single mom, and then now I have a husband, and he a great partner, and he has helped motivate me to get where I'm at and supported me. So that definitely had a role to play, especially at, later on in life. But at the same time, I don't want anybody to use that as leverage to hold them back, like you said, to make an excuse, because you want to do something, you're going to find a way. And like I mentioned before, like even this morning, I got up at 3:30 a.m. Did I want to get up that early? No, but I always have a routine that I do. Is I work out in the morning that sets my mind right, gets me in a good mood, my endorphins flowing. Then I journal and I put, okay, this is what I'm going to do today. This is, what I want to achieve. And this is what I'm going to plan to do for the rest of the 3 most important things that I need to get done today. So that you're always going to be overwhelmed with tasks to do, especially if you have big goals. But if you write down the 3 most important things that you have to do every single day, and then take the end of the day to reflect back on that, that'll help you to stay motivated, but not get too down on yourself where you're like, oh, well, I didn't hit my goal, so, I'll just throw it to the side and try something else. But it's like you said, success comes from the small, repeatable actions and steps that you take every single day that lead up to this success that you have.
Yeah. Big fan of to-do lists and, checking those off. One of the best things I learned from reading the Atomic Habits book is being effective over efficient. So instead of like, we all have 100 things to do, just like you said, right? The top 3 things you have to do, instead of just like all these small things just to check it off, right? Like, that's just being efficient, or right? You're just like, yeah, just doing all these things here and there. But like, once you're effective with your time, where you got the top 3 things, then you feel a lot more fulfilled, and you're like, okay, well, I can do the rest another day. I do mine by time sensitive. Like, do I need to do this today? Can I wait till tomorrow? That's how I do my stuff. I want to talk about taxes, but we're gonna take a quick shishi break, and we're gonna come back with social media questions. We're gonna go live. We're gonna get some live social media questions. So maybe if you're on the live as you're listening to this, maybe you could watch. I get what am I trying to say? Like, what I'm saying is, maybe somebody who is on our future live will be listening to this episode in the future as well. I think that makes sense. I'm going to take a quick shishi break and we'll be right back. What if we told you the next 3 times you fill your tank, you could save money? Well, at Texaco in Hawaii, it's true. You can get $1 off per gallon on your next 3 visits when you download the Texaco app and join Texaco Rewards. Earn points on every fuel transaction and qualifying in-store purchases at participating Texaco stations. Download the app and join to get started today. Visit TexacoHawaii.com for details. All right, we're back from a quick shishi break. And as you can see, I got my iPad facing this way because we're live on Instagram right now. We're getting some social media fan questions as we record this episode. So we're trying something new here. Let me start with the first one that came in from, I got to scroll back, from Cactus_Hawaiian. This person asked, how do you get over the fear of jumping in and getting started?
Definitely knowledge, education, and being around other people who are doing what you want to do. I think once you see proof of concept, you get more comfortable with it, that it's an actual reality. I mean, I've seen, YouTube videos or things pop up, how I went from zero to multimillionaire. And I didn't think it was, I'm like, oh yeah, they're just talking. But especially if it's somebody that you follow or someone local or someone you can relate to, I feel like that is super helpful for you to get over your own personal fears. And I still to this day have my doubts about, specific projects, or did I make the right move, or should I take this on? But for me, it's all about seeing other people do it and then implementing what they're doing, but also just having education and being around other people that are at my level and above.
Yeah, I think just seeing that it's possible and also representation is so huge. Seeing another local person, another Hawaiian person, Filipino, whatever ethnicity or whatever you relate to, I think that's super inspiring for people to see. Because like I mentioned earlier in this episode, like I thought the best job you could get was like you go work at Walmart, work construction or something, whatever it is, So, or like work at a state job or government job, So I think having social media is really awesome too, because we can actually see it. But then there's also that skepticism side of it too, right? It's like, can I actually make $500 in 20 minutes like this ad says,
Well, yeah. And then too, when you see someone local doing it, but then who also is sharing, the entire process, because you see, yes, that's the end goal, but what did they go through to get there? And are you willing to, like we talked about earlier, do those sacrifices in order to achieve that goal? And so I think that's something that you have to think about yourself. But yeah, number one, education.
Yes, totally. Education. That's what we try to do here. Okay, so this question comes from Instagram. And remember, people, to leave some Instagram questions live as we're recording this. But this one comes from the story I posted the other day from iGray808. This person says, how do your investments help the locals in Hawaii?
So we talked about this earlier in the episode, but for me, I intentionally buy rentals that can work with people who have vouchers like Section 8 or rental assistance. And then also the fix and flips that we do and renovations and new builds, we try our best to sell to local families. And so a lot of them get, priced out of paradise. And that is a true thing, but also getting people to have a chance to buy it before it even hits the market and all these other people come in. So I think there's a balance between, you also have to make money too, but how much money do you actually have to make off of it? And so when you're willing to give that up so that another local can stay here, or, break even sometimes too, to help them move into a house. And like I mentioned before, a few people who have reached out to me are like, I've been trying to get a house for a year. I put an offer in at asking and it still get outbid. So I think being intentional with who you sell it to, who you rent to, the projects that you're doing. And like we're doing an affordable housing project, just in a few years, I would have never imagined that I'd get to this point. I thought maybe down the road, I would have enough contacts and enough funding to be able to do this, but I'm able to do it right now. So that's the
awesome.
beauty of it.
Yeah, it's something that I'd never really thought about in ways of helping others is
Mm-hmm.
being a landlord or owning something that I could rent to a local family,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because I feel like sometimes real estate has a bad stigma here in Hawaii, especially because it's like rich white people. That's what we think of, or like the
Right.
Chinese investors or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But if we took it in our own hands and we built these properties and we had the final say in renting it out, like I'm moving into town and I'm getting a place that's really hard to get into, but I noticed that the property manager was my classmate from Kaiser High School. So like now she gets to rent it out to a local person in a place that's, you know, really hard to get. So I feel like be being in a position where you have the power to delegate those things is super awesome, and something that I'm going to think about in the future as well, as maybe if I get into real estate. I don't know, it's still an intimidating thing for
Right.
me.
But ownership gives you, like you said, that power to
Yeah.
be able to do what you want with that property. If you don't own it, then you really don't have a say. And I feel
Mhm.
like, investors get a bad, you know, cred or bad
Mhm.
name. And there are investors that are different from me, right?
Yeah.
I'm just speaking my truth and what I do, but there are other ones that are different and do things differently. But I think it's important to realize the good that can come out of it. And when you're investing with the right people, or, when you're referring people, it's to me or Fuzzy or whoever it is, that you get to know them first and know what their mission is. Because at the
Mhm.
end of the day, I want to make a difference here. And how can you do that? How can you make a bigger impact? You have to first make sure your family and your loved ones are set, and then you can go and help other people. You got to make sure you're good first, and
Mhm.
then be able to help.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I mean, you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
right.
So you
Mm-hmm.
don't be giving away, free houses when you're still
Right.
struggling, right? So once
Yeah.
you get to that point where you're able
Mm-hmm.
to give back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. This comes from our Instagram live right now from Jess in Hawaii. This person says, "What would you have done differently when you started? Now that you know what you know."
I definitely probably would have started more passive investing. So that means when you invest into other real estate projects and you make a percentage back. And typically in real estate, that's anywhere between 8 to 12%. I wish I would have started doing that more instead of just putting my all into these fix and flips and partnerships,
Mhm.
and would have explored that avenue. And that's what a lot of people who don't really want to like go all in or quit their job, they start passive investing into real estate because they know they're going to make a better return than the typical stock market, their retirement, or a savings in the bank. And so they invest because, well,
Mhm.
now they have like 4 or 5% CDs and things like that, which is still really great compared to 1 to 2%
Mhm.
just a few years ago. However, with real estate, you can get double-digit returns without having to go find the deal, having to deal with contractors or having to deal with renters. And I think I would have gone back and done more of that first so that I have another stream of income. So 100% diversification is key in any sort of business or anyone's
Mhm.
life. Is say you're working your job, right? And you get fired. It's like, oh, all my income was coming from that avenue. But then if you have rentals, if you're investing in other people's projects, if you're fixing and flipping, or you have these longer term projects like I have with commercial real estate, there will still be some sort of income or cash flow, even if one of them goes out.
Mhm. Passive income.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've heard about it for years, and now that I make passive income with like these streams and stuff, oh my gosh, it's the greatest thing ever.
Right?
Like I can just my truck payment is paid off every month while me doing nothing. Well, not you're not doing
Right.
nothing, but
Yeah.
because of this, I'm just like, that's so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yeah, passive income is amazing.
And that
Oh, sorry to interrupt everybody. We got somebody in
he heard
the
we were doing
building.
a live and he
Who's
wanted to
this?
hop
This guy
on.
walking in. Past podcast guest Fuzzy Jardine. You wanna pop
Hey.
into the screen.
Always interrupting me.
How's it?
Can't do anything without my business partner over here.
That's so funny. Okay, next question comes from Nick Ani on Instagram Live. This person says, "How do you achieve all your workout goals?"
Of course you would. I know who this is. So like I mentioned before, waking up early. I wake up the crack of dawn, even before the sun comes up. I typically wake up between 4 to 4:30, and then I start working out at 5, because when I tried to work out after work or after the day was done, I would make excuses like, oh, I'm so tired. Oh, I got to cook dinner. Oh, the kids have a game or something after school came up, or, my husband is working late, so I got to do this. So there was a lot more excuses that could come in, or things that could disrupt my workout. But if I just get it done in the morning, I feel better. I can think more clearer, and I don't have really any excuse because nobody is up to interrupt me.
Very true. Yeah. Okay. That's a great way to do it. And then he follows up with, can you explain how to raise money for a project that is running out of money for the project?
So typically this does happen on quite a few projects, because a lot of times you may go over budget, or you might go over the timeline. And so whenever you're looking for more funds, it's important to explain to the private lenders, which is everyday people who have money in their savings account, their retirement, or in maybe a line of credit, and they want to invest it in something that will make them a better return. And so for them, I think, one, your credibility, your past projects, the success you've had, but two, also them seeing that you have paid other people back. Because a lot of people are hesitant to invest in things because they're scared they're going to lose their money. So there's ways where you can get a lien against the property to secure their funds against it. Also get an insurance policy naming them as a beneficiary as well, just in case the house burns down. And then also if you give a personal guarantee. So a lot of the projects that we do is we will let them know, like, hey, even if we lose money on this deal, you will still get paid back your interest. And we keep in true to our word, because we do so many projects and we're so diversified that if we lose money on one project or break even, we can make it somewhere else. And that all comes back to doing things at scale and partnerships, because you're able to not only maintain that relationship with that private lender who will then trust you to invest in another project, but I think with investing, a lot of people don't realize that you're not going to win 100% of the time. There is a small portion of risk, right? So even if you win 80% of the time, but during that 20% where you broke even or even lost money, you're able to help another family, or you're able to provide a home for someone who didn't have one before. Just thinking beyond the monetary aspect of it and realizing that this whole life is a relationship thing, and karma is real. I believe that 100%. And if you do the right thing, people will see that, and that's the more they'll invest with you.
Yeah. I think a saying that I said before is, you make a living by what you get, you make a life by what you give. So, and I feel like, whatever you give, it always comes back to you, whether that's good or bad, Okay, shout out to Kono Baker Coaching. Says, awesome podcast. Keep up the good work. Mahalo. Let me scroll through these questions. As I do that, I'll go back to our story Instagram question from Mile_Tofi. She says, what are the top 3 things a new investor should do to secure OPM? First off, my question is, what is OPM?
So OPM is other people's money that consists of bank money, hard money lenders. So those are different types of lenders that will lend on fixer-upper projects. And then there's also another private money, which is, like I mentioned before, everyday people who want to invest in real estate but don't want to be active. They want to be more passive. And so for me, the top 3 things is always sharing about the project. Building your network is the second. And then also the third would be, either if you don't have any experience, partnering with someone who does, so you can bring in their credibility so that people will then trust you to invest with you. And for me, my first private lender, how I secured them ever, was because I just kept showing up. I showed up to all the investor meetups. I showed up to help with different people's projects for free. Like, if there's some way you can add value, especially if you're just starting off and you have no experience and nothing to really add to that person, you always have time, right? If you don't have money, you have time. So figure out a way they can help. Say you're really good at admin stuff or QuickBooks or something like that. Ask the investor that you want to learn from, hey, do you need help with, running some of your back end things. Like, I'm really good at this. I can do it at night or whenever your free time is. I mean, there's so many ways that you can help other people to then, benefit yourself as well.
Okay, awesome. Mahalo. Next question comes from our Instagram live, and we'll probably stay on for another 10, 15 minutes. So if you got some questions, get it in. This person, will._.i.m, says, which states are you currently investigating? I don't really know what that means, but is that like a real estate term?
Maybe researching, maybe looking for properties in.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So currently only Hawaii. So for my goal, my end goal is to build truly affordable housing here. And we're coming pretty close to doing our first project. So I want to do many more like that. And on Oahu, on Maui, on Kauai, on every island, however many I can do. And so I do still have projects all over the US that I partner with other people with. But as far as looking for more projects, definitely just staying in Hawaii for now.
Is Hawaii one of the best places for real estate because of the price? Or is it also one of the worst places because of the price?
It's both. It is very difficult to find a deal here. But when you do, there is so much potential to make a lot of money, but also to do it in a way where you're helping the community too. So I believe in doing both when you can. There may be instances where you can't, but at the same time, I think, like I mentioned before, when you live here, you've grown here, and especially if you came from nothing, like you need, it is your kuleana, your responsibility to find a way to give back, even if that's educating people about different sort of financing they can get to buy a home. And a lot of people don't know that there are creative ways that we teach our students, is that there's owner financing. There are ways where you can partner with the homeowner, to flip the property. And people are like, what? People do that? I said, yes, they do. But it is not common, but it is a strategy that could work for you and them as well. So it is very home or property specific. But even more recently, we just sold a home in Wailuku that it was a older Japanese guy, and his wife was in hospice care. And so he couldn't show that he made all this income. He had it listed, or he was going to list it for a little under 400,000, but he talked to his niece, and then she was following me. She was like, hey, my uncle is wanting to sell this house, but he cannot, because if he shows this income, he's going to have to pay $10,000 a month for hospice care. And right now they're only paying $2,500 because they don't have any income. So I said, well, there's a way if he finances the deal for me. So she's like, what is that? So I had to explain to her that because he owned the property outright, had no mortgage and had no liens on it, he could basically become the bank, and I could pay him like I would a bank or a mortgage directly. And so there is a lot of legal paperwork to that as well. Like there's lawyers, a title company was involved too. But just for him to hear about that, he was like, okay, like let me hear a little bit more. But if you're able to explain that to someone, then they can decide if they want to do it or not. But there's a lot of tax benefits, like you were talking about before, and things like that to consider, especially if you're a homeowner trying to sell and you have potential to make a lot of profit on the sale.
Okay. Yeah, it's cool hearing all these options that I didn't even know about. Even like when I think about getting into real estate, I'm like, I don't want to sell houses. I don't want to flip houses. But what you mentioned earlier was just you could just invest into certain things. So doing that, is that like, say you have a project and you're raising $100,000. Well, you probably need a lot more than that, but let's just say $100,000. And I give you $5,000. Is that how it works? So I give you $5,000 and you're saying, if you give me $5,000, I will double your money. Is that how it works?
Well, basically, okay, so let's put this in a real life situation.
Okay.
So
$100,000. Let's be real. Come on.
$100,000.
You can get the bathroom.
Right. That wouldn't even be the flooring or anything like that. But so typically the amount that we're raising is anywhere for between 100 to 500,000, maybe even $1 million, just depends. So typically we'll ask for a minimum of between $50,000 to $100,000. And say you put $100,000 into the project, you could get 10% I'll just on average back on your money. So that means over the course of a year, if the project takes a year, you would make $10,000.
Okay. And with my $100,000
Yeah.
back,
So
right?
you get on the sale, you typically get your money back plus the interest that accrued.
Okay. So,
without really doing anything. I mean, signing paperwork.
Yeah.
There's a promissory note and some other paperwork that goes along with that. But basically, you just you're making your money work for you. And you talked about that earlier, passive income. That's exactly what that is. You're making your money go make babies.
Yeah. And you're probably not gonna make $10,000 with $100,000 sitting in the bank.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Typically, right? Because it's the 0.01%.
Yeah.
Or
Unless
if
you have like a high
CD,
yield saving or CD or something. Okay.
Yeah, and that's around 4 to 5%. So you could potentially make double.
Okay. And is it taxed? Or the capital gains tax? Or how does that work?
No. So you wouldn't be an owner on the property. So you would count that as interest income, which would probably be counted as active income. Consult your financial advisor for any tax advice.
Okay. So most like that will be taxed a little bit somehow.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
But it's a smaller amount than you going and buying and selling a house.
Okay. Yeah. One of my favorite things as an entrepreneur is figuring out the tax deductions. I love doing that. Sometimes I just like want to spend money because I'm just like, this is a tax deduction, which Jordan's like, no, don't spend all that.
Right.
You don't want to just spend money.
Right.
But I do think that is something that people should be more aware of. I know you had one reel where you were just like listing all the things you can do, like meals and like all this tech. Like if people are looking all around here, like you see furniture, you see tech, you see everything. I see tax deduction, tax deduction, tax deduction, tax deduction. That's what I see.
Right. Well, even flying here, right? Your airfare, because I'm technically working, you can write that off. Or family trips. If you're going to go and look at real estate, that's a write-off. But number one thing is you have to be making money in order to justify deductions.
Yeah.
So first, focus on the income portion, and then you can focus on deductions.
Okay. What is your biggest tax advice?
For people that are getting started?
Like, how do we save the most on taxes? Because here, taxes are so bad. Like, you get like 60% of your actual income back or something. So is it just like finding all the tax write-offs? Is that the biggest way to keep most of your money?
Well, I think starting a business would be a great way to get some deductions, because if you start a business, those could be business startup costs. So you can buy things that you would already buy for yourself. You know, again, not tax advice, but things that you would already, like if you wanted to already start a podcast or you wanted to be more active on social media. Like social media is a business, keeping up, creating reels, spending your time, you know, doing these interviews, buying props and things like that. So if it's things that you're already going to do, or buying a car, a vehicle. So last year, my husband bought, a truck that was over 6,000 pounds. So then we got, I think it was 80% deduction over the total cost of the vehicle that you could write off in the first year. Before it was like 100%, but it's going down. And I think those are the ways that you can buy something like we mentioned before. Don't buy the Toyota Tacoma just for looks. Like you can, if you start a business, you can actually get it as a write-off if you're using it for business purposes.
Or even if you lease it, and you can put that as a tax write-off too, right? And so basically you're just like driving it for free. Yeah.
There's so many different ways that you can write things off if you're using it for business purposes.
Yeah. So I guess open up an LLC, get a business card, and just try to find the ways around it. Yeah. I just feel like we need to take advantage of our situation. Like if this is what life is giving to us, let's try to maximize it. Let's try to figure out ways to,
Yeah, taxes is huge, and people don't even realize it. Even when I was working full time, I didn't realize how much taxes were getting taken out of my paycheck because I never seen it. Right, I just
you got a W. It's like a W-2, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who are high income earners, they end up investing into real estate in some sort of capacity because they get depreciation, where you can take a paper loss, which is where, say you invest, $50,000. Now I started a fund with a few partners, and that's where we invest into larger commercial real estate buildings. But that's when we pull a bunch of people's money together and buy the building. But those people are not actively in the business. They're investing like they would a passive investor, and they get those deductions. So say they put in 50,000 and they're able to basically take that 50,000, even though it's an investment, and write off majority of it on their taxes.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So,
I don't love taxes, but I love the tax game.
right.
Yeah. And I just recently, like, it finally clicked in my brain after years is how it works with like your business expenses. I was like, okay, so if you make 100,000 and you spend 40,000, you get taxed on 60,000.
Mm-hmm.
It's never clicked into my brain until just like a couple months ago.
Well, you never made this kind of money, so you wouldn't have known about it.
Yeah, because I'm around a lot of business people now, so I'm always asking questions, and I just couldn't figure out. Like, I didn't know like I could transfer money from my business account to like my personal account, or like write myself checks. I kept thinking I would get like double tax. Like, I'd get taxed for sending it to my account, then I'd get taxed for spending it. So I was just like, I'm learning a lot.
Owner's draw.
Yeah.
But definitely, if you are a high income earner, you should be investing in real estate in some sort of capacity, whether that's buying your own rental properties, passive investing, or investing, like I said, in syndications or funds where you get depreciation. Now, there are a lot of funds, though, that you have to be accredited. So you have to have $1 million net worth or make at least $200,000 a year on your own. And prior to this, like, a lot of people couldn't even invest in these types of deals. Like, I didn't even know you could invest in apartment buildings. I thought it was individual people or like these huge businesses buying them. But as I make relationships and go to these events and meet more people that are millionaires and billionaires and things like that, I realized like they're doing it with partners. Like you could be invested as a partner, get these tax deductions. And that's huge because, like you said, you're paying 40, 50, 60% in taxes sometimes. And you want to be able to keep more of your money without actually losing it.
Yeah, or at least have like control of how those taxes are being spent. Okay, another question comes from, I'm just gonna say Will I Am. There's a lot of periods and underscores, so you're Will I Am now. He says, where do you see better opportunities, single family homes or multi-family properties?
100% multifamily properties if you're talking about keeping them. So single family, definitely if you're, fixing and flipping or doing renovations, it's easier to sell. With multifamily, if one of the units goes empty, you still have the other units to help pay for your expenses, like your mortgage, insurance, taxes, and things like that. So what I've learned early on is that vacancy is a huge factor in your expenses. So that means if you buy a rental and it's a single family home, then someone moves out, typically there's a month timeline before you could get your next renter because you have to clean it out. You have to repair anything that broke, and then you have to find a new person and vet them because a lot of people, end up saying, oh, being a landlord sucks or it's hard. And probably because you didn't do your due diligence on the renter coming in, you just thought, okay, I'll just pick anybody. But doing a background check is important, their credit score, and not a lot of people who are on HUD or rental assistance have the best credit score because they haven't made the best decisions financially. But for me, I look at the overall picture of it and where they're at in their life. And I accept people that don't necessarily meet my criteria, but I also am investing with Aloha, investing from the heart. And I look at that person. And so I think the more you do it, the more you'll get a sense of what fits your own personal goals. And so single family, multifamily for me specifically, definitely multifamily.
Cool. I like that saying, investing with Aloha. Yeah. That should be like the motto, or maybe the name of a podcast.
I know that was going to be our podcast. So we have a podcast, Investing in Hawai'i.
Oh, okay.
But I also already took the name Investing with Aloha, so nobody stepped up.
Okay, cool. She's on it.
Right.
And you and Fuzzy are about, can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I don't know if I'm spoiling anything, but you and Fuzzy will be starting a podcast.
Yes.
What is that one called?
Investing in Hawai'i.
Oh, that's the one.
Yeah.
But you guys haven't started yet, or you have a couple episodes.
Yeah, we have a few.
Oh, okay.
It's still.
Is that the one that you guys been shooting?
Rocky. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's
Cool.
kind of been DIY. It's
Oh,
not
okay.
real serious yet. So we are working on getting that.
Okay, cool. I thought this was a different one, but
Yeah.
okay, same one.
Mhm.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're gonna log off and we're gonna get back to just our regular recording here on the Keep It Low podcast. So mahalo everybody for joining. We appreciate it. Watch this episode when it comes out, and maybe your name will be shouted out. How do I flip this so I can say goodbye? Right there. All right, mahalo. All right, so when we get to this point of the podcast, I like to ask all of my guests the same question about keeping it aloha. I would like to know, in your life, how do you keep it aloha?
So I think being mindful with any decisions that we're making, and then also just making sure that you are helping lift up someone else that was in the position that you were, or that even just needs help in general. So a lot of times, we get caught up in our day-to-day activities and trying to push our own goals forward. I think it's important to take a step back. One, make sure you're spending time with your family, but two, making sure you spend a little bit extra time helping someone else get ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, helping others.
Mm-hmm.
I see something that you brought in earlier, and I think this is a good time if you want to show people it, because you got a bunch of pictures over there. Can you tell us what that is? If you want to go grab it.
Grab it. Brought this all the way from Maui.
Got some Hawaiian miles on it.
It's earning for me as well. Tax right off. So this is one of the vision boards that I did early on. I think this was done in 2021. And so I never really believed in, like, they call it like hippie stuff, right?
Manifestation.
Manifesting, intentions, vision boards, goals, all of this kind of stuff.
Crystals? Are you a crystal girly?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
What kind?
yeah. I have some, but I'm not fully into it. But I do believe in the practical things, like creating a vision board. So number one, like you said, is getting around people that are doing things bigger or achieving goals that you want to achieve. So when I joined a mentorship and was around millionaires and all these multimillionaires, I thought, man, like, okay, maybe I can do that in 5 or 10 years. And I went to a workshop and they're like, hey, put your 10, your goals that you don't even think is possible on your vision board. So I was like, okay, I want to own an apartment building one day. Mm-hmm. I want to go to Bali. I want to own a beach house. I want to have a great relationship with my family. I want to have a great relationship with myself. I want to be a millionaire. I want to travel more often. I want to have a great relationship with my husband. I want to go on a cruise. I want to be on Bigger Pockets, which is the biggest podcast in real estate investing. Mm-hmm. And I want to partner and network with people and help other people get started. And I did this in 2021 before I had any money to do anything, and I was working my job. But this truly helped me. I put it on my bulletin board. I put it in my car. I even had it screenshotted on my phone as my wallpaper. Mm-hmm. And just having this visual every single day helped me to stay motivated and push forward. But I actually achieved majority of this stuff. And it's only 2024.
Wow. Congratulations. Right? That's amazing.
I know. So I wanted to bring it because I feel like a lot of people say that it's hard and it's challenging, and it is. But when you have your goals right in front of you, that just seems so big, like you'll get to them even quicker or faster, or maybe even be one step further than you ever thought you could be, because you were striving for so much. Mm-hmm. So I think this is very important for people to put together. Even what, back in the day, they had newspaper clips or magazine clips. And now this was done on Canva and it's digital. Yeah. But I still believe in the power of printing things out, having a visual, and also like writing, using your fingers, your tactile, you could type on a computer or put it on an iPad. But for me, it's pen to paper. It'll go to here, to here, to here quicker if I write things down. And that's the importance of journaling as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I write all my to-do lists out on a notepad.
Mm-hmm.
Was post-it note,
Mm-hmm.
post-it notes. Yeah, and I believe in all of that. I'm not a vision board person, but I write things out like my goals. Like I'm going to do this. I'm going to pay off this. I want to make this amount. So I think putting it from here to here, just like uh, it makes it a little bit more tangible.
Right. And
Yeah,
especially when you've never done it before,
yeah.
you're not really confident or you're not really
Mhm.
sure. Like a lot of the questions were like, well, where do you get started? How do you do
Yeah, even
this?
if you're
And
scared. Yeah.
right. And I know a lot of people are scared. Like there's many people in my family who have been in financial troubles. And so they're worried about doing anything new, right? Or
Mhm.
anything out of the box, out of the ordinary. But that's where you have to start. You have to be comfortable getting uncomfortable because that's the
Mhm.
only way you're
Mhm.
going to change and only way you're going to do something different.
Yeah, the biggest growth happened on the other side of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You ever think about getting into politics? 'Cause I know you're very passionate about affordable housing. You don't also the way you're dressed too. I'm just like, oh, I see you
Very
on a little
professional.
sign right there. Zasha
Right.
Smith, investing into the community with Aloha.
Hey. Well, for me, I don't like people telling me what to do. So that would be difficult to navigate. But I think overall, you can still have an impact without being in politics.
I
And
agree.
so for me, it's one house at a time, right? One project at a time. Now, a 32 lot project, now it's getting bigger and at scale. But I feel like you don't have to watch your every movement, or you can move the way that you want to, or work with the people that you want to, that you feel is the best fit, not because other people feel like they are the best fit, or because of politics, you have to
Mhm.
work with this person. And so, I mean, that's what it was like at my job, right? Now I have the freedom and flexibility to travel when I want, do what I want, work with who I want. And if I don't like them or we don't mesh well, then I can no longer do business with them. So
Mhm.
I think I can make an impact just doing what I do now.
Awesome. I agree. When people ask me that question, I had the same answer
Hmm.
as you. Yeah, I don't. Not that I don't like being told what to do. I just feel like I can make an impact without getting into politics, and then we can control more of what we do.
Right. And
Yeah.
I think it's just the tit in me too. Is like, you can't tell me what to
What?
do.
What
Like,
you say? Huh? I gotta do what? You
right?
do
I
that.
know. I know. It's hard. It's hard to let it go. But, that's how you keep, a lot of people too ask me about like being a woman in this space.
Mhm.
And, my husband has his own business. He's very supportive in the background. But as far as in the industry, I partner with a lot of different people. So, like, oh, being a woman, how do you not have people step all over you or take advantage of you? And I have a few times, but at the same time, you have to know what the process is and get that experience first. Like going into something new, you're not going to know what to expect or who is, pulling the shade over your eyes. But at the same time, it just goes to show who that person is, and then you just pivot and not do business with them anymore.
Mhm. Awesome. Super cool. All right. So at this point of your life, at least to us, you look successful. You've had a successful career. What would you say you're most proud of?
I'm most proud of definitely. I mean, everybody who's a parent will say their
Mhm.
kids. Glad that my
Mhm.
daughter is graduated and she's turned out to be a beautiful person. And now I have my son who, he has autism. He's high functioning, but he is just progressing every single day. So I think that's a huge blessing. And I'm proud of both of them and my husband as well, progressing in his life, because when we were younger, we partied and did all the things, but
Mhm.
we have grown up and every year we continue to level up. And just this past year, I can say a proud moment was when we went to Europe. We took a freaking European cruise.
Oh, that's
That's
awesome.
was on my vision board, which I thought, when we get older, we can go on a
Mhm.
cruise when
When we're
we're
60
60
and
or
we're
70,
retired. Yeah.
But we did it just this past
Mhm.
year. Our daughter graduated, and we felt like this was the time to celebrate all of our accomplishments, but her accomplishment as well. And that was a dream come true. Trip of a lifetime for now. There will be many more,
Until the next one.
right?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Hmm.
I keep looking at your shirt and I see the Hui Real Estate Mastermind. And Fuzzy was here as well. Oh, he's going in and out. Co- um, Can you tell us what that is and how can we get involved in that?
So the Hui Real Estate Mastermind is basically a mentorship that we started. I was in a mentorship, and so was my business partner Fuzzy before, and they were both in the mainland, based out of the mainland. Didn't really have, local coaches that could help us, and that's what we yearned for and wanted. And for me, I was hesitant to start a program here because I knew the differences of opinions of, real estate investors in Hawaii. But I was kind of silently showing what I was doing on my Instagram, and people were like, "Oh, can you coach us? Can you coach us?" I was like, "Oh." So when I talked to Fuzzy, he was like, "You know what, Tita? We're doing amazing things and we could help so many more people if we put something together." And I said, "Okay, if you'll partner with me on this and just like all my other projects, if you partner with me, I'll do it because I'll have someone to go back and forth with to know, okay, are we putting the program, everything that we need to into this program? Are we giving our all to these students? It really helps just in general in life to have a partner." And so for me and him, because we have the same mission and now we're doing projects together and we see each other for who we are. We came from nothing and now we're making something of ourselves. We know the struggle and we know what it's like. So who better to help these people than locals who've done it? So the real estate mastermind is basically people, like-minded people that want to get started in real estate in Hawaii or want to scale their portfolio and just don't know how to partner, what the conversations are or where they should scale to. And so we have weekly calls where we have guest speakers, we have trainings that go into more detail about finding deals, analyzing deals, finding money. We have Q&As, question and answers with the students. And then we also have a live course academy on there that has a bunch of videos that talk about the foundational information that you need to know to get started in real estate investing. And then we also have some bonus meetups that we put on together and we all hui together. And that's the whole purpose of this program, is to hui, to make sure that you're not alone, because there's going to be highs and lows. And we want to support people wherever they're at to get to their next goal. Even in real estate and business and life in general, we want to be their guide and just keep them motivated, because it's hard. It's a struggle to stay motivated in anything.
Yeah. Is this a physical hui or is it like virtual?
Yeah. So most of the calls are virtual, and then we'll have in-person bonus meetups at different projects. So we did one in Kalihi Valley on a project there. And we did one on Maui at one of my projects in Wailuku. So we plan to do a lot more.
Okay, awesome. Well, if anybody's interested, like Instagram.
So go to huimastermind.com.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Or DM me the word hui and we can send you more information.
Yeah. And she said if you DM her the phrase, "I need money, can I borrow $20?" she'll let you borrow $20 as well.
Yeah. I'll hand it off to Fuzzy for that.
DM Fuzzy, right. Hey uncle, I like borrow $20 and he'll send you a Venmo.
Right.
Okay. So what do you enjoy the most about everything that you do?
I enjoy seeing the families that go into the homes, the families especially that are on Section 8 or rental assistance, be so thankful that I gave them an opportunity, because a lot of people struggle with finding landlords that will even accept Section 8 because it is way lower than what you could get a market value. So on Maui specifically, there is a family, a single mom, who her voucher is for $3,200. If I go and list that or rent it out to someone at market value, so that means any average person, I could probably rent it for $4,000 a month or more. But I'm choosing to accept less cash flow or less profit so that she can have a place to stay. And also, more recently, since the Lahaina fires, we built 2 tiny homes on one of our rental properties in order to house some people that, everything burnt down. And that's the impact that we're able to make because we have ownership of something, of land, of a property, of something here.
Yeah. And I know it's been a year since the Maui wildfires, the Lahaina wildfires. How's your family? How were you guys affected? And I guess, what is the goal now, like to rebuild?
So my daughter's family, she was from a previous relationship. They were affected. Her dad's house burnt down, a rental, and then a lot of our friends and family. And so for us, it was all about kokua. It was all about what can we do to help. So we were there. My husband, because we own a plumbing company, we had a bunch of trucks. So we were, getting supplies out there for, a good portion when everything first started. We were helping get water out there and everything that they needed, or helping and at the shelters that were at the gymnasiums and things like that. So I think wherever we could help or were asked to help, or even when we jumped in and said, okay, what's needed, we just help with the organization of it all. So
Mm.
I think that was the initial. And then now it was, okay, there are different family members struggling with their finances or struggling to know where can they get help. So just being a resource for people to know, okay, this is where you can go if you need help filing with your insurance or trying to apply for FEMA, or, getting assistance with food or different areas where they still do like kind of like food handouts and
Mhm.
things like that, and clothing. So I think just being a resource for them, but also, when everything happened, my husband ended up donating one of his trucks to a family member there who is struggling. And now that we're housing a few people, it's great to see the community coming together, and now people are rebuilding. So it's going to be amazing, but at the same time, I think you can't knock anyone for selling their land, because
Mm.
it is it was a traumatic experience that happened. And my daughter was out there the day that it happened, and she drove out of Lahaina. She's like, "Mom, the telephone poles are falling over, the fire's happening," and she got out. So I'm
That's
very blessed that
crazy.
she did, and she was early enough in it to come to our house.
Mhm.
But it's amazing to see the community banding together.
Mhm.
But, you know, everyone was affected in different ways. And I think the emotional part of it, or even more recently, we went out there and went to the beach and met up with some family, and they were just, had high hopes, but still like, man, this is not the same.
Yeah. Hard, like, you wanna get back to, some sort of normalcy, but what is normal anyways,
Hmm.
right? That's like, it's never gonna be the same. It's never gonna be quote unquote "normal." Um, yeah, I went there 'cause I worked on a project, to, like, show talks to some of the survivors. It was crazy.
Hmm.
To me, the craziest thing was, the ho so you see the rubble, you see the whatever, we went to the spot. But not until you see the picture of what used to be there, that's when it really hits you. Cause like, I saw all this stuff and they're, like, going through things, and I was like, "Oh, and this is what it used to look like." I'm like, "What?" From that to this, like,
Hmm.
it blew my mind,
And it was overnight that it
just
happened. It's so
like that.
crazy.
Even and it's crazy that some houses still didn't even get affected.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was super, super trippy.
Well, and that's when too we have a short-term rental out in Apili, and we used to just stay there sometimes too because it was a nice kind of getaway. But we have one of the people that was affected living there. She's been there since October, so like
Mhm,
right after it happened, and we started. That's the only one that we have, so we mostly do long-term, and we're planning to keep it that way because I think it brought an importance and awareness too of, okay, there is a housing crisis, but what can you do more to provide housing for people? And I'm already thinking about that
mhm,
already, but at the same time, making more owners like aware of that. Like, yes, you're gonna make less money if you rent a HUD or Section 8, but if you buy it right and you get the right type of loan, then there is some cushion in there for you to accept less profit.
mhm, yeah. Um, what was my question? Oh yeah, I heard these rumors, of like as soon as this all happened, houses burnt down, people like investors or other people were calling saying like trying to buy up lots and properties. Was that true?
I think so,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it may have been people from the mainland. It probably was
Mm-hmm.
calls that a lot of times for investors, and this is not personally what I do, but they will hire out different companies to call a bunch of lists in whatever area to ask them if they want to sell. So it may have not been intentional that that happened, but there's definitely people that are looking for opportunity, or people in the mainland that maybe didn't realize the magnitude
Mm-hmm.
of the effect that it had on the community. And it definitely was not right. And we were telling people, especially everybody that I knew, like, do not call anybody in Maui. That is so unfair. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not right. That's not pono. But, I think it's just people holding steadfast. And then now that they're able to rebuild, they might have moved somewhere else and are okay with that. But I definitely, I'm not here to judge anybody, but I definitely try to get them to keep their property. Like, however, which way, even if you don't live there right
Mm-hmm.
now, just try to keep the land there. Try to, you know, have the long-term goal in mind of it being a piece of land for your family in the future.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Uh, what do you think is the hardest thing about your job?
Hardest thing would probably be hearing people's situations. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times I'm talking to people that are going through the rut, their divorce, financial troubles, like, family feuds. And it does take a toll on me. There are times where I come home and I'm crying, or, I absorb that energy.
You're like
And
back to being a counselor.
I know. And I feel for them. And
Mhm.
I know sometimes they can't help the situation, but also I have to be there to show them the reality. And if you don't do anything, you may lose the home to the bank, and then you most likely get nothing. So you're limited with your options. And of course, it's always the goal for them to stay in the property. But at the same time, just hearing everything and taking all of it on, that's probably the hardest thing for me. And
Mhm.
just not wanting to see them lose the home, but they have no other choice.
Mhm. Yeah, that's definitely hard because you kind of become attached, or
Hmm.
emotions come into it, especially when you're a good person and
Right?
you don't care just about the money, right?
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's difficult to see other people struggle. I think that's
totally.
the
Yeah.
hardest part.
And not wanting to just try to help
I
everybody,
know.
but if you try to help everybody, then you're gonna struggle. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's a balancing act for sure. Okay. What is something you wish people knew about you that they don't?
Ooh, I share everything on social media. So I guess I wish they knew that I really put my all. I don't think people realize, especially when you put your all into something, that little things or negativity really affects you when they're commenting on, whether that's the way that I invest, or, oh, you're just a, slumlord, or you're just an investor. And I don't think a lot of people get to see the backside of it. And I think that's the most hurtful, but I always play it off because, I mean, that's why I exercise and wake up really early so that I could
Get it all
get in
out.
the right mind space. But I wish people in general just knew how much their negative energy affects
Mhm.
others. And you could use that for so much better things and positive things. And even for people that might not have confidence in themselves, um for being so out there on social media, I still struggle with the balance of like being confident and humble. But at the same time, if I don't share my story and I don't put myself out there, like, nobody's really going to know, and nobody is going to be inspired. Like, there's so many people that message me every single day, and I do read those messages. So maybe that's something I want you guys to know. That really is why I do what I do, and why I'm here today, and why I flew here to
Mhm.
talk to you and share my story, but also thank you for having me on.
Of course, yeah. I mean, you have a great story to share, great mana'o and ike to share with people. Uh, I think if more people use social media for good, I think this world would be a lot better, and if they kept their negative energy and comments and perspectives out of social media just with themselves, or found better outlets to get rid of those things, then life would be a lot more joyful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it's part of the generation that we live in, and it comes with the territory.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in your specific career, just because of how the history and trauma of land and real estate, affordable housing, all these things, it left a bad taste in people's mouth. But
Mm-hmm.
I think what we can do is, try to lead by example and show people that, you don't have to be a bad person to be in this. You can be a good person and still be in this industry. And, you can still make money and have a good heart and
Right.
help others, because a lot of times, even with us, they see anybody who's successful in Hawaii, and then you're making money, you're taking money, you're just like, well, this person is terrible, they're whatever, all these things, and you're like, no, I'm just trying to make a living and give back what I can,
Right.
They don't see the 90% underneath the iceberg.
Right.
They just see
Well,
that
and I
little
think it's
10%.
important for people to realize, like, if somebody's winning, it doesn't mean you're losing.
It's not taken away from anybody else.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, community over competition. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing, the success you're having isn't taken away from anybody else. We can all be successful. We can all win. And, we just collaborate, support each other, and, lead with aloha. Invest in aloha, lead with aloha, keep it aloha. Okay, well, we're coming to the back end of the podcast, but before I get into my last questions, I gotta know, what is your life hack?
My number one life hack is a morning routine. 100%. My life changed when I started getting up earlier and being intentional with that time that I'm awake before anybody else, before the entire world. So 4 a.m., definitely not, excited to get up that early, but I have literally seen the results of me getting up, it being quiet, exercising in the morning, journaling, and then your 3 most important things to do for the day, but time blocking and really taking in, okay, what did I do yesterday that was working and what didn't work? And how can I do better today? So I think that self-reflection is definitely a game changer, but just start by waking up early. Your alarm goes off, you're like, oh, what? Like, this is so
Snooze.
early. Just like roll out of bed and go work out. Once you work out, you're like, okay,
Yep.
now I'm up.
Everything gets
So
going.
I don't start any of the journaling or anything else until I go work out, so that I'm already, my blood is pumping, I'm ready for the day. And my kids haven't even got up. My husband isn't even up, So you have no other distractions. And I feel like that is one of the best life hacks and keys to success.
Awesome. Yeah, it's funny how working out always gives you more energy, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, when I don't have a solid morning routine, even though like my life is good, it's not as great. Like, I don't feel, it feels kind of just off,
Right.
because like I've been injured for most of this year. So before that, I would always get up at like 6:30, go to F45 workout. And since I don't work out anymore in the morning, I'm just kind of just like, taking my time in bed. That's why I'm not up at 8 o'clock anymore.
And that's late for me.
Yeah, it's really late. You've been up for 4 hours already. So yeah, getting back into a good morning routine is so solid, and makes your life so much better. Yeah. Okay, and last thing before we get into these, what is the future here? Well, what does the future look like for you? 5, 10, 20 years?
It's a long time. Well, I'm going to be retired by the time I'm 40. So
Are you actually going to be retired? People
I'm
like
going to
us never
I'm going to be
truly will
traveling
retire.
way more than I
Okay.
have. I think after we went on this cruise it was almost for a month, that made me realize the importance of seeing other cultures, just putting myself into, situations where I didn't know the language, or I didn't, wasn't familiar with, was eye-opening. But it was also like, oh my gosh, I don't really know that much about the world. And I've never studied, world history or other countries, really. It was always like, okay, if you want to go anywhere, I'm like, I want to go Vegas. I want to go somewhere fun, But I think after this past year, with speaking across the country and going to events with thousands of people, it was like, man, I want to see what else is out there other than the United States. So I feel like retiring is more so being able to travel more often.
Awesome. Yeah, once you get out there, you realize, wow, we are really just a tiny rock in the middle
Right.
of the ocean.
And of course, do more affordable housing projects.
Yeah.
That's definitely on the horizon.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So I got my last fast fave 5 questions. These are just rapid fire answers, okay? Favorite guilty pleasure?
Ooh, chocolate.
What kind
I
of chocolate?
love
Brand, dark, milk,
Hershey's, almond, chocolate
white,
bars, M&Ms, anything
any
chocolate.
chocolate.
Yeah. So I recently started doing like a chocolate protein chia seed pudding thing.
Oh, nice.
So that kind of at night when I want ice cream or I
Uh-huh.
want like some sort of chocolate or, something sweet,
Yeah.
I'll just go straight to that. Put chocolate protein powder in there, the chia seeds, almond milk. I think it's a little bit of cinnamon, but yeah,
Cool.
it helps fight that craving.
Nice. Yeah, chia seeds are really good for you too.
Mhm.
Okay, favorite investment?
My favorite investment, it probably has to be the RV park that we bought a couple years ago. So I had met this lady through Instagram, and she had this really cool project coming up. She did in Missouri. It's Branson, Missouri. It's totally, I would have never thought I would have invested there. But like I said before, I partner with a lot of people. So if they have a good investment, I will definitely sit down and look at it. She needed help raising money for the project. So that's where I came into it. And it's actually going to be opening up next month.
Ooh.
And it's
Where?
in
Maui?
Branson, Missouri.
Oh, Missouri. You just said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish that we could do more
Mhm.
RV park stuff
Yeah.
here. But that is my first time getting into that kind of property. And it's going to be 50 pads. There's 10 glamping tents. They have a stargazer tent.
Oh,
They'll
cool.
have raised cabins where there's going to be jacuzzi tubs underneath. It's just like a really cool project. There's going to be a camp store, a pool. And I've never really done it's almost like luxury camping, like
glamping.
yes,
Yeah.
glamping is what they
Yeah.
call it. So I'm excited for that project because it's something totally new. And I've never,
and different. We don't have anything like that.
I
I don't know
know.
one person with an RV here in Hawaii.
Right. And
Yeah.
I mean, my goal too is I want to build a tiny home community.
Mhm.
So maybe after this project, I'll get some more ideas, and all that has to do with, getting state and county regulations is why I haven't really done that yet. But that is definitely on the horizon. But I'm excited for it because that sounds cool and it sounds fun.
Sounds awesome to me. Okay. Favorite travel snack?
Travel snack is, I would say, almonds.
Oh, okay. Nice. Just
Yeah.
like a bag of them.
Yeah, usually they give them out on the plane too. So I'll
Mhm.
have a stack in my bag from previous trips. And I'll
Okay,
eat 'em.
nice. Just let it build up.
Right.
Okay.
Frugal, remember?
Yeah, very true. Favorite quote?
So life doesn't get it better by chance. It gets better by change.
Mm. Did you post that recently? Did you just share that recently?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I heard that quote and I was like, oh my God, this is speaking to exactly what we were talking about before.
Very true.
Was like, a lot of people let life happen to them, but they don't think about taking control of their life and that they actually can control their destiny. Like,
don't wait for your life to happen. Okay, and last one. Favorite TV show or movie?
favorite movie. Ooh, this is going to be one that is different, but I think it'll be good for the audience to hear is Once We're Warriors.
What is that?
Once We're Warriors? You've never watched it?
I don't think so.
Oh my gosh. How old are you?
I'm 31.
Oh, okay. So
we're closer in age than people probably realize.
Well, Once We're Warriors was the movie that was filmed in New Zealand.
Okay.
And it's pretty deep. So it had to do with a Maori family. And it was pretty popular, so I'm surprised you haven't seen it. A Maori family. It was filmed probably in the, late 90s, early 2000s. And it was, they were like bikers. They partied all the time. They had, a bunch of stuff happening at their house. But it was just about a story about their family. The daughter in the family, something bad happens to her. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on here.
Okay.
And she ends up hanging herself.
Okay.
So I mean,
So
this
it's a
to
heavy,
the
it's a
left.
heavy
Yes,
movie.
it's a heavy movie. But the family afterward just kind of like falls apart. And then it's just a realization the dad has of how he wasn't protecting the kids. And I think just because of my background, I can relate to a lot that happened in the movie. So that's why it's my favorite movie, because I rarely, like, it takes a lot for me to cry, like actual tears coming out of, I'm pretty tough. But that movie, every time I watch it, I cry. And I'm like, man,
okay.
It's an eye opener.
I gotta look it up after this. All right. Well, mahalo for sharing all of that. That's all we got for you today. Just want to say again, I appreciate you coming over here, making the early flight, sharing all of what you just shared, and especially bringing your daughter to share this experience with us as well. Is there anything you want to share with us before we wrap up? If not, tell us where we can find you.
I would like to share the fact that a lot of people are scared to try something new. But I say just do it. Just go for it, whatever it may be. But just put yourself out there. I was a complete introvert before I started on social media, but because I was doing it so much, it gave me even more confidence to reach out, to partner with people, to do big projects. And so I think if anybody is watching this and they're like, oh, I don't know if it's possible, just start that morning routine life hack. And then start believing in yourself. Give that confidence. Tell yourself, affirm, manifest that you are where you want to be. And you will build that confidence in yourself, even if you don't have the experience.
Speak it and believe it into existence. I love that. Okay, well, where can we find you?
On Instagram, at Invest with Zasha is my platform. And then also the huimastermind.com. It's our community. We help our students achieve their real estate investing goals. But not only that, just being surrounded by like-minded people that can have these open conversations about finances, about real estate, about wanting more in life, I think is ultimately more satisfying than we would have thought. And it was hard for us to find that community here, but now we have it and we've seen success in our students. So come and join us.
Awesome. Well, do what she says. She won't do what you say, though. Mahalo, Zasha, for joining us on the Keep It Aloha podcast. Spread love, be kind to one another, and mahalo for listening to us today. We have new episodes every Thursday, so make sure you follow us and leave a review. I'm your host, Kamaka, and remember to always keep it aloha.